Welcome to the Modern Husbands Podcast, where any combination of Dr. Ross, Christian, and Brian host national experts who share winning ideas to manage money in the home as a team. Join your fellow modern husbands and have links to our podcasts, articles, and other resources to manage money in the home as a team sent to your inbox every couple of weeks by subscribing to our newsletter at modernhusbands.com. Today's guest is Andrew Johnston, a national health, exercise, and fitness expert. His accomplishments include a former professional cyclist, a CHEK master practitioner, a holistic lifestyle coach level 3, a certified ELDOA trainer, two-time men's health top trainer in America. He's a leukemia survivor who was the subject of an award-winning documentary, Living is Winning, and he's the author of the books Holistic Strength Training for Triathlon and Spot On Nutrition. Enjoy today's show. Andrew, thanks so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Well, let's start with something fun. We would love to hear about your favorite triathlon victory and maybe explain to our listeners what a triathlon is first.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so a triathlon is everybody thinks a triathlon is an Ironman. They're not synonymous. Triathlon is the event. Ironman is the distance. But a triathlon is an event where you're doing a swim, a bike, and a run. And my specialty was the long distance course, so half Ironman and longer. And so an Ironman is a 2.4 mile swim, 112 miles on the bike, and then a 26.2 mile marathon.
Stretched out over a month?
Yeah. Sometimes it feels that way, but no, you're trying to do it as quickly as possible. You have officially 17 hours to finish. Otherwise, even if you cross the line, you're not a finisher officially. And as far as my favorite one, there's lots of favorites, but the one that I think I enjoyed the most because I was just so happy to be there and I had a smile on my face the entire time. So it just was easy, was the Hawaii Ironman World Championships. First time I went it. And it's just amazing. The atmosphere, and it's hot as hell, 130 degrees coming off the pavement, going through the energy lab. I had a bacterial infection at the time as well, but literally just couldn't wipe the smile off my face. So I don't think I ever felt an ounce of pain for the full, I think it was 9 hours and 50 minutes is what it took me.
I'm cringing just thinking about it. And I do have to ask one follow-up.
Yes, sir.
You cycled across America. And we were talking about this because my father did when he was 60 and then when he was 70. And then my son did when he was 13. And
That's awesome.
I thought to myself, that's kind of impressive. But then I heard about what you did. Can you maybe share a little bit about you bicycling across America?
Yeah, so there's an event that happens every year called the Race Across America. And I've actually done it twice now. I did it in 2014 and then 2021. Both times were team events, so it's not nearly as epic as it might sound. But it is a 3,000 and actually more like 3,200 mile nonstop event. Once the clock starts, it doesn't stop till you cross the line from Oceanside, California to Annapolis, Maryland. And both times took us around 6 days. And on the first time I was on an 8-man team, all based out of Georgia. And this last time was a 7-man team from all over the nation. And even we had one guy from the UK, but he couldn't make it because of COVID. And we were raising money for the Leukemia Lymphoma Society and pediatric cancer because we were trying to be the first team of cancer survivors to do that. We were about 5 cancer survivors and then, of course, 3 people who had been affected by cancer. And I don't think anybody hasn't been affected by cancer, but it was kind of hard to find 8 people that had, survived cancer and were fit enough and had maybe even spousal permission enough to go do a race across America. But that's what we did. And we raised somewhere around $330,000 for pediatric cancer, et cetera. We were pleased.
That is incredible. I feel like that if I was able to drive across America and get it done in 6 days by myself, I would feel a little sense of accomplishment. I can't wrap my mind around cycling it.
Well, I would never want to do it in a car. I'll tell you that.
I think that's where you and I maybe have a little bit of a different approach on getting from A to B.
Perhaps.
I can barely show up to a podcast recording on time, let alone, we all got to meet up in California at this date. Otherwise, leukemia and child cancer doesn't get our donations. I mean,
Right.
Serious pressure on that initiative. So there are a lot of myths and misconceptions and sort of funny ideas floating around in the world about exercise and health and fitness. What are the ones that you hear most frequently about exercise specifically?
Oh man, like you said, there's hundreds of them. I would say from my female clients, one of the most common is like, oh, I don't want to get big.
Mm.
And I respond to them, how often are you shaving your face? And usually the answer is not very often, right? So I'm like, you don't have to worry about that. A, I'm intelligent. I know what I'm doing as far as designing your program. B, you have to eat a heck of a lot. And you just don't have the hormonal profile to get big. A lot of guys that I work with don't have that hormonal profile. So it's a lot more challenging to get, look like the Hulk than most people think. So I would say that's one of the biggest that I hear, at least from my female clients.
Yeah, we kind of beauty standards too, right?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I will tell you that I have some people, I even had one guy that he came to me and he's, the average bear as far as I'm concerned. He wasn't particularly out of shape, but he was far from being very svelte. And he showed me a picture of this guy with like a six pack and said, okay, I want to look like this. I'm like, all right, that's doable. So we sat down, we did a nutrition and lifestyle consult. I hadn't even given him an exercise program yet, because that was usually how I started with people, because not everybody needs to exercise, but everybody needs to think, breathe, drink, eat, sleep. So I thought that was a lot more important. And once you get that down, then you can be healthy enough to start to exercise. However, after 1 week of the session that I did with him, where one of the things that he took away from the session was I need to drink more water. Indeed, he did. But he came to me and he said, I still don't have the six pack. I actually thought he was joking at first, and he was completely serious. So let me just put it this way. Our relationship did not last very long. I think his idea of how quickly things were going to change were a little bit delusional,
So I'm imagining this kind of guy might probably be better off just understanding common health challenges faced by men as we age, rather than trying to build out a six pack. So along those lines, what are like common health challenges men our age, middle-aged men face, and how can we proactively address them?
Well, it's not just exclusive to men. I think as we age, one of the things that happens as far as our bodies are concerned is we actually lose muscle mass. Okay. Sarcopenia is what it's called in the most extreme cases. And it starts happening early, relatively early, basically 35. And I will tell people all the time that what you do before the age of 40, it kind of determines what you feel like and look like and function after the age of 40. But so you're losing muscle mass effectively like 3% per year. Okay. And then you're losing strength about double that. So about 6% per year. And then you're losing power, which is basically how fast you can express that strength, at 9 times that. So it's imperative, as far as I'm concerned, to continue to build strength and maintain it. And if you can do that, then you've got the ability to get off the floor, to walk up and down stairs, to ambulate, however the case may be. And most people, instead, they focus on cardio or something along those lines. But that's the kind of the last link in the chain. And I tell people all the time, if you break the links in a chain, you're going to break the athlete.
That is, can you quickly give us those numbers again? Because those really are.
So literally physiologically 3% muscle mass loss per year. And then you're going to double that for muscular strength. And you might think that's synonymous, but mass and strength don't equal the same thing. In fact, strength is a skill. You learn how to apply strength. And then power is basically expression of how quickly you have applied that strength. So force times time is basically power. And to give you an idea real quick, power, a lot of people go out and they'll run or they'll swim or they'll bike. Well, those are expressions of power. But power is built on a foundation of strength, and strength itself is built on a foundation of both flexibility and stability. So in my first book, it's broken down into 4 different sections: flexibility, stability, strength, and power. And as I said, people go all the way to running from the get-go. and yet they've missed these other components, and no wonder they're coming to me to either rehab an injury or reach a certain level of performance that they were expecting, but were never able to reach it because unfortunately they missed those links in the chain.
And how much time do you recommend the everyday person spends working on their flexibility each day?
So when I'm designing programs, usually, let's say if it's a 45-minute program, I'm asking them to do it 2, preferably 3 times a week, at least. However, I ask them and ask them these questions. Can you devote 5, 10, maybe even 15 minutes a day to daily flexibility work? Because that is most important. It's not doing it for an hour here, an hour there. No, it's the consistency and the frequency with which it's done. And in fact, if you think about this, we do most of our healing at night when we're asleep. So if you heal in a contracted, maybe a poor posture position, you're going to maintain that. But if you can stretch, if you can boil yourself into a better state of posture and then heal in that state during your night of sleep, the idea of you maintaining that gets greater and greater each time. It's just easy. So I get my clients hopefully to sleep, to stretch at least once a day.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is mind-blowing for me, lifelong athlete and, haver of strength, I guess.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Thank you.
Well, Christian, for you, buddy, too, it's free speed, so think about the Tin Man running. Tin Man doesn't run too fast because he's stiff. But if you can make that a little bit looser, just oil those joints, and now he moves much more freely. And if you look at the best athletes, whether they're cyclists or runners, they look like they're moving effortlessly, even though they're putting out a ton of effort. And it's just because they can move their bodies well.
Efficient. Let's get into diet next. You've really helped kind of set up the core components of exercise routines. So once you have these core components set up, the flexibility, the stability, and now you're building towards strength up. I guess making that transition from strength into those higher echelons. I don't know if I'm describing this correctly or like as a pyramid or something, but as you move from strength to, power, what does that look like? What does it take? What type of exercises and frequency does it take to get there?
Sure. So, I mean, anything that's a form of ambulation, whether it be walking, running, swimming, cycling, but even all the other sports like football, baseball, those are all power sports. And in the weight room, we're working on strength, which is we don't really care about the speed of the movements. And the heavier the weight, the more the force must be produced. Okay. However, if we're trying to translate that into power in the weight room, there's lots of things we can do there, including plyometrics, which sounds like a very fancy word, but you and I were doing plyometrics when we were in kindergarten. So did you go skipping, in the down the hall or anything? That's an expression of power. And the funny thing is I had clients earlier today, both in their late 60s. And one of the things we did is we skipped. And the woman had so much fun. It was like, I haven't skipped in 30, 40 years. And at first it took her a little while to get it. But you've got to learn these skills. And it's interesting. Like, yeah, we get slower as we age, we get weaker as we age, etc. We do these things because we're not doing the things to prevent that. If you move quickly, you don't get slow. If you lift heavy things, you don't get weak. If you take care of your nutrition and lifestyle, guess what? You're going to have health for the rest of your life. Instead of just having a lifespan, you'll have a health span. And to me, that's more important.
You brought up nutrition, and I feel like that every month I see some sort of new fad or research saying that, you can eat bacon every morning and be just fine, or drink a bunch of beer and just be whatever the fad may be, or the clickbait. So I want to address some common dietary myths for our listeners that you hear most frequently, so we can walk away from this podcast, knowing what's real and what's not.
Okay. Well, I will tell you that almost anything you've heard in the mainstream, if you do the exact opposite, you're probably heading in the right direction. And I hate to say it, but it's true. I will also say that all these people are looking for bells and whistles, but it's really just the basics it's the foundation. So are you drinking enough water? Do you maintain your blood sugar?
What is enough water?
All right. So how many rabbit holes do you want to go down, Brian? I'm happy to. But so in general, the rule of thumb that I give people is drink half your body weight in pounds and ounces of water a day. So if I'm like 130 pounds, which more or less I am, that's 65 ounces. And that's pre-exercise and it's pre-heat. So Georgia summers, you might want to bump that up a little bit.
Okay.
And it's amazing what that does for you, Brian. Like you have 1 billion biological processes happen in your body each second. So that's 1 billion right there. It's another 1 billion. They're all pegged to the quantity and quality of water. And so if you're dehydrated, something's not working right. And guess what, my friend? You don't get to choose what that thing is that's not working right. We're born at 90% water. We kind of level off at that 70%, 72%, et cetera. We die at 50% water. So I would stay, hydrated if I'm thinking about trying to stay alive.
Wow. Okay. So there were other things. I wanted to go address water right away, but
Sure.
Sorry, continue. What were some of the other things that you wanted to bring up? The other dietary myths that you want to dispel?
Well, so saturated fat, not bad for you. Cholesterol, not bad for you. Sugar, not bad for you. So let's take sugar real quick. I actually have a chapter in one of my book that quotes the band Def Leppard, "Pour Some Sugar on Me." That's how it starts off. So
it's a great song.
Yeah. But honestly, their lines were very, if you analyze them from a biochemical standpoint, it's like, wow, did they study, science? I'm sure they didn't. Either way, what they say is spot on. And sugar, let's put it this way. When your body is stressed, okay, and it needs energy for either fight or flight.
Yeah.
The body's preferred source of fuel is glucose.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is if you don't provide that glucose via your diet, you then provide that glucose via your tissue. So your tendons get broken down, your ligaments, yes, your muscles. And here's another thing that I need you to consider. It also breaks down any protein containing tissue, and that means your organs. And while you might be able to live fine without a bicep or your big chest, you don't do all that well without a kidney or a spleen or whatever. So you need to provide that sugar. Otherwise, your body's going to find it some way because it needs it.
Well, in the financial decision-making world, glucose is essential. It's essentially fuel for the brain, particularly like our ability to delay gratification. Our willpower derives from
without a doubt,
and energy. But we're not talking about drinking or eating, 4 bags of Skittles here for lunch.
No.
What do you mean by, what's an appropriate amount of sugar?
Well, again, appropriate amount depends on the person's and their caloric expenditure and their caloric need. And I always say that in the presence of quality nutrition, sugar is therapeutic. So, of course, where are my sources of sugar? It's in every fruit. It's in every vegetable. It's in every dairy source. Can I add sugar to stuff? Sure, as long as I'm meeting my other nutrient requirements. And honestly, people sometimes are coming to me having issues gaining weight, and yet they don't eat enough calories. So the World Health Organization defines starvation as starting at 2,100 calories and under. And I've had people come to me on a 600 calorie a day diet prescribed to them by a doctor who, by the way, I love my medical professionals, but they don't study nutrition in school. If they do, it's maybe 2 semester hours. So getting your nutritional advice from somebody who doesn't study nutrition and in general has a lifespan 10 years less than the rest of us, you might want to take that with a grain of salt or a grain of sugar.
A quick word from one of our sponsors, Money Marriage U. Listeners have told us that they love the ideas we share on our podcast to manage money as a team and want to learn more. That is why we created Money Marriage U, self-paced online courses for couples designed by National Financial Therapy and financial planning experts. You can find our Money Marriage U courses on our website at modernhusbands.com. While visiting modernhusbands.com, be sure to join fellow Modern Husbands as bi-monthly newsletter subscribers and receive great ideas to manage money in the home as a team and a few free gifts. Now back to the show. Wow. And then I know Christian had a pressing question, but just one more, kind of follow up with these like these dietary myths. Is it really as important as what folks say in, whether it's the media, doctors, whatever it be, maybe, a reasonable amount or a lot of, I don't know how you want to define a lot of green vegetables, but how important are green vegetables in your diet?
Yeah. So again, this is where I go against the mainstream. A lot of these foods that have been touted as being healthy aren't necessarily healthy, but it depends on your biochemistry. So your biochemistry right now, Brian, is different than it was this morning. It'll be different this afternoon and this evening. So it's constantly changing. But there's a lot of these vegetables that have what are called anti-nutrients in them, that because we are omnivores and we're not a cow with multiple stomachs, we're not ruminant herbivores, that can take nutrition out of a food that you and I can't necessarily digest and make it into nutrition suitable for them. We don't necessarily have that capacity. And unfortunately, we've done such digestive damage to our bodies that our digestive system is even worse off than typical. And so we start having issues with foods that would normally be fairly innocuous. So in short, a lot of vegetables out there that you think are healthy, I will say if you don't like to eat it, then maybe you shouldn't. Taste is usually actually quite a good determinant of whether or not something's good for you. However, food scientists have come along and then learned how to manipulate that for their benefits and the benefit of their company, meaning their financial benefit. But so let's look at spinach being a green leafy vegetable. Okay, fine, but it's got cellulose in it. Nothing necessarily wrong with cellulose other than you don't produce cellulase, the enzyme necessary to break down and assimilate cellulose. So you can't really do anything with that food. Some people would call that, oh, well, that's just fiber. That's going to be good for your bowel movements. I will tell you that if you're having issues with your bowel movements and having constipation or anything, you have an issue with your thyroid. Okay. And one of the things the thyroid will do is, okay, if I'm bringing in food that's not necessarily suitable for my human digestion, I'm going to bring down my thyroid so that the systems that I'm running can slow down because I'm not bringing enough energy or resources to run those systems. It's like a plant that builds cars and I'm not bringing enough steel in. Well, eventually I got to start slowing down my production of cars because the steel's not coming in. Same thing with the body, but even more intricate and beautiful, in my opinion.
How do you bring your thyroid down?
You don't want to bring your thyroid down if you can help it. But how do you do it? You bring your thyroid down by not drinking enough, not eating enough, not sleeping enough, under-exercising or over-exercising, stressful thoughts, breathing incorrectly, so many different things. And of course, certain foods. So let's look at one food that is supposedly good for you. Polyunsaturated fatty acids. So something like corn oil, okay, because it's an unsaturated fat. Well, one of the things it does, it's pro-inflammatory, it's immunosuppressive. That means it makes you sick, and it downregulates the thyroid so it doesn't allow you to start using the thyroid to its optimal. And that's because it basically destroys mitochondria. I mean, we can go down the cellular rabbit hole if you want to, but there's lots of things out there that will make the thyroid not terribly happy.
Wow.
One of the main reasons, I imagine, aside from just like throwing thousands of calories into your belly at one time, that fast food can, make us feel pretty terrible soon after, I imagine.
Yeah, they're cooked in the crappiest of oils, and so these polyunsaturated fatty acids, I told you they're the negatives, but they're reactive. Okay, they react to oxygen, they react to heat, and they react to light. So they're very unstable. And let me ask you, Christian, as a human, do you like heat or do you like cold? Where's your body best function? Where's your body best function?
I would say cold, but I don't know.
Okay. I bet, let me ask you, so like, do you warm up for your exercise?
Yes.
You warm up because your body responds better. Okay. So I'm going to lean us towards warm, even though you're trying to lean us towards cold. All right. Do you like oxygen or do you like being hypoxic?
I'm more on the oxygen front.
Go figure. Yeah. And do you like sun or do you like darkness?
I'm team sun.
Yeah. I mean, in general, that's it. I think it's common sense, honestly. So If you have an oil that is almost the antithesis of that, how can that be healthy?
Hmm.
And yet we're told saturated fat's bad for us.
It's like kind of a Trojan horse almost.
Without a doubt. And one of the worst, I mean, seed oils and the like only became relatively prominent over the past, 75, maybe 100 years tops. And it's because they're so inexpensive. And as they've done so, there's been a corresponding, increase in obesity and disease and a decrease in health. And even lifespan at this point is actually starting to go downhill.
What about olive oil?
Olive oil is a mono unsaturated fat. So
Okay.
it's more stable than a polyunsaturated fat. That being said, I flavor with it. I wouldn't cook with it.
Okay.
Yeah. I cook with ghee, with butter, with coconut oil, with lard. In fact, we just had duck last night and we cooked the potatoes in the duck fat and it was amazing.
Okay, let's talk about organic food. Why or why not is organic food, all that it's cracked up to be?
Well, unfortunately, these days, I think it has been watered down, the idea of organic, and it can be kind of bought and paid for. So I would say you should know where your food comes from. You should know how it's sourced, where the farm is, et cetera, and the quality of it. I mean, and you can do that easily, and I can give people resources if they're interested. That being said, the organic food is not really even just for the health of you, which is a good place to start. But as far as I'm concerned, it's for the health of the world, because the pesticides and the chemicals and the fungicides and the other stuff that we're putting on there, they're all neurotoxins or they're endocrine disruptors and they destroy our health. Yes, they're destroying our health, but they're destroying the health of the microorganisms in the soil. And without those bad boys, guess what? Nothing grows, nothing lives, and we're all dead. I think it behooves us to try to do things that support the closed circle of nature and how it works. And when we do that, life goes well. And when we don't, life ends. And I think we've been moving in the wrong direction for a long, long time. I'm trying to change that.
For sure. Have you heard of greenwashing, Andrew?
Yeah.
This is this concept that a lot of companies in different industries are doing this, where they'll basically throw on eco-speak language onto their product packaging. Oh, this is, eco-friendly or 100% natural or whatever. Or they'll throw on there even organic or organic ingredients without the actual third-party verification that the full supply chain for that product is in fact organic.
Right.
I think that makes it even tougher for consumers or people like you and all of us who care about this, the health of the earth and the health of communities and the cyclical, the circle of life that we're all participating in. It makes it even tougher for us to wade through and make decisions. So thank you for bringing clarity to this very murky world.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I had a nutritionist once tell me that if you just put stuff in your body that mankind has had very little to do with, that you're going to be just fine. They're not, if you're, apples, carrots, when you grass-fed beef, whatever. And the more mankind fiddles with stuff, the worse the food tends to get. Is that true?
I tell people all the time, that's almost a direct quote, Brian. Every time man tries to improve upon Mother Nature, we screw it up. And it's the truth. And so again, I wrote a book on nutrition and it's however many pages long, but the first chapter is 1 page. And if all you ever wanted to do was read that 1 page, you'd be fine. And it has statements like, if it hasn't been on this earth for 5,000 years, don't eat it. If you can't pronounce an ingredient in a food, don't eat it. The more health claims made about a food, don't eat it. If it won't keep your dog alive, don't eat it. Things like that. It's common sense. If I'm talking to your grandparents, or my grandparents, they knew this stuff and they lived it. Okay. Yeah. And my grandparents, both pairs lived into their 90s and they, my wife grew up in Africa, drinking raw milk. And so there's a lot of things that we do that, we're getting rid of the bacteria or doing whatever. Really, it's to increase shelf life, therefore to increase the financial gain of the supplier, et cetera. And it's kind of doing the exact opposite of how we got here to begin with. If all this stuff was bad for us, we would have been dead a long time ago.
So the challenge that a lot of us face with that is that you're constantly having to buy things, because it's like, at least this is the case with me, like fresh fruit specials, whatever. But we all, but particularly our listeners, have busy lives. You have an athletic child, you work, and so it feels like that we're all constantly on the go. So if we're
Sure.
all constantly on the go, what are some like really quick, nutritious meals and snacks that families can turn to?
I mean, my wife and I use the crock pot quite a bit, because she works, I work. And so set something up early in the morning and we leave, we go work, come back, and it's fixed. Okay. As far as the main meal. And then we add, supplements to that, whether it be some fresh salad on the side. You don't have to cook lots of the vegetables. You don't have to cook any of the fruits. You can for all this stuff. So I think the hard part for, like you just said, is the time issue. But with a little bit of planning, a little bit of forethought, and a few things here and there, I think you can avoid the pitfalls of going by McDonald's or ordering out or doing whatever the case may be, and just because it's convenience. And in fact, as far as I'm concerned, Brian, the big C these days, it's not cancer, it's convenience. That's what's killing us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And health can be convenient too. So let's focus on that, and it's not as hard. It's not as challenging as people make it out to be, but they also need to prioritize it. So do you prioritize driving a $100,000 car, or are you going to prioritize having a grocery bill that's, $600 a week? I mean, I'm not going to be buried in my BMW, and tell you the truth, I don't have a BMW, but what I'm getting at is, I can't eat my car. So I'm going to spend money on the one thing I think that's the most important, and that is health. So I know you and the podcast is oftentimes it's about wealth, but what good is wealth if you don't have the health to enjoy it?
I totally agree.
That's my definition of being wealthy, is being able and free and capable and strong and healthy enough to do anything I want to do. And I can.
Yeah. We see money just as a tool to unlock your best life. And
without a doubt.
And that's why we're having you on here, because how you feel is a core component of that.
Sure. And it really doesn't need to be expensive. So again, for your podcast listeners, if you went in Georgia, it's georgiaorganics.org. And in, New York, where Christian is, I think it's newyorkorganics.org or something along those lines. And you can find all the lists of restaurants, all the lists of grocery stores, all the list of farmers markets and other stuff that are organic, and co-ops to where you're actually supporting your local farmer and you're getting food at pennies on the dollar. I mean, my wife and I did a cow share one time where we bought part of a cow, and it was like literally, instead of being $20 a pound for grass-fed whatever, it was $5 a pound. I mean, it was so inexpensive, and at the same time, you're supporting the people that are truly producing quality food,
right?
And therefore quality environment and quality soil and quality water and quality air for the rest of us. It doesn't have to be the way it's going, but we also have to be a part of that change. You're voting every time you spend money, right?
Yeah, so, right.
Like, what are you voting for? Are you voting for your own demise, or are you voting for cleaner air, cleaner water, quality food, etc.?
Are you engaged, recently married, or know someone who is? We are empowering engaged and recently married couples who want to manage money in the home as a team with a transition to marriage toolkit. Learn more at modernhusbands.com. Now back to the show.
We like to finish off our episodes with some hacks or shortcuts, quick tips that obviously, nutrition and health, there's not really a single shortcut that you can take, but if you've got quick pro tips that busy folks can take away from our episode, now's your soapbox chance.
All right. Well, so when it comes to body transformation, there's nothing that beats nutrition and lifestyle. Okay. There's a saying that you can't outrun a crappy diet. More or less, that's true. And in fact, when you start exercising, instead of being a Honda Civic where you can put just some normal unleaded fuel in that car tank, the gas tank, you start to become a sports car. And what do you put in a sports car? Quality premium fuel, right? So food actually becomes more important, and it magnifies. Exercise is only going to magnify any deficit in your nutrition and lifestyle. So I would say that's first. But then after that, strength training is at the top. After that, you have what's called interval training, where you're going hard, easy, hard, easy, hard, easy, HIIT training, for example. After that, I would just say long, slow, steady distance. So endurance, protocols as are normally practiced. And after that, it's just plain move. So instead of taking the elevator, you're going to take the stairs. Instead of parking right in front of the door to the store or your office, you're going to park at the end of the parking lot and just walk. That's the biggest secret over in Europe. I mean, they're so much thinner than they are because it's a pedestrian society. They move. And if you're at the office 40 hours a week, get a standing desk or drink so much water that you have to go to the restroom regularly, because at least you'll go walk back and forth to the bathroom. And the funny thing is that I've consulted a lot of companies as well. As their employees get healthier, their productivity gets better too. And the bottom line just keeps getting better and better and better. So, truly think locally and act globally in that regard.
So we do want to end the podcast today with something that's unique. We want to play this or that. So we're going to ask you to choose between two options. And I know this is all speaking in generalities, but two different options. And then you share which is better for our health. So Rapid fire, no explanations needed. And then let's assume that each of the foods are truly organic.
Love it.
All right, you ready?
Let's go.
Grilled chicken or smoked salmon?
Salmon.
White rice or brown rice?
White.
Almond milk or milk?
I've never seen a cow named Almond otherwise. So yeah, real milk.
Fried chicken sandwich or cheeseburger?
Cheeseburger.
Water or Gatorade?
Water.
Broccoli or carrots?
Carrots.
Lettuce or spinach?
Spinach.
Bourbon or vodka?
I don't know anything about alcohol. Whichever one doesn't come from a grain, if there's one.
Oh.
Potato vodka?
Potato vodka. There you go.
Potato vodka. Okay. The Russians have it figured out then. Beer or wine?
Wine, and European wine, preferably.
Okay. 15-minute jog or 30 minutes walking on an incline?
I mean, that depends on the biochemistry of the person, but let's just get that person moving. Let's start with just walking.
30-minute jog or 30 minutes of HIIT training, high-intensity interval training?
Again, depends on the biochemistry, but I'm going to go with the HIIT training.
Okay. 15-minute jog or 15 minutes of stretching?
The flexibility is the component off which that power is built, so I'm going to go with the stretching because it's going to be not done anyways.
30 minutes of cycling or 30 minutes on the elliptical?
Kill me on the elliptical, give me the bike every time, but yes, cycling.
This has been enlightening. I'm looking forward to posting this and then sharing a lot of the specifics that you talked about with the post. But probably the best source for our listeners is to go straight to you. So can you share with the listeners where they can learn more about you and perhaps purchase some of your books?
Sure. Yeah. Well, some of my books are on Amazon, Holistic Strength Training for Triathlon, as well as Nutrition, Spot on Nutrition. Those two are on Amazon, although I prefer you get them straight from me if you get the chance. Either way. And then my website is triumphtraining.com. I'm also on Instagram a little bit, but not much. I'm not very active socially as far as that's concerned. I like working one-on-one with people.
Triumphtraining.com. I like it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And Andrew, thanks for joining us today.
A special thanks to our guest and, of course, to all of our listeners. Don't forget to click subscribe wherever you download your podcast, give us a rating, and share the Modern Husbands podcast with others. Doing so goes a long way in growing our reach and helps married couples learn how to manage money and the home as a team. And join your fellow modern husbands and have links to our podcast, articles, and other resources to manage money in the home as a team sent to your inbox every couple of weeks by subscribing to our newsletter at modernhusbands.com. Until next time, be well.